Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and you know what time of the week it is. It's Friday. Just get down on Friday. Stop being selfish. Not gonna lie to you, right? Not gonna lie to you. It's getting hard, isn't it? It's getting harder to do wrestlers of the week because there's not much wrestling going on. And you know what? I mean, remember that week when Oney Lorcan won? Not to throw shade at him, but this week the quality of wrestling has increased overall. The reason that I'm saying, oh, remember when Oney Lorcan won, is because he won because he had two pretty good matches in a week, but none of them were like really good, you know what I mean? But this week did yield some properly good matches, and one of them yielded our wrestler of the week. But before that, let's take a look at the honourable mentions. The honourable mentions this week are Andrade, because he did alright on Raw, didn't he? And Chris Bay, a wrestler that I don't know much about, but he got a big win on Impact. And that's it. You know what? It's hard to do honourable mentions as well, okay? Like, who else could it be realistically? Maybe you could say Charlotte Flair, maybe Candice LeRae for a whole new thing. Yeah, why not them as well? It's getting so tricky. I'm having a breakdown. Let's go on with the league table and let's have a look at number 10. Number 10 this week is my boy, Marco Stunt. I mean, another squash match on Dynamite. They do a lot of them these days, but at the same time, when Marco Stunt's in the squash match, you know it's going to be good. It's not that long since we saw him get absolutely wrecked by Lance Archer, and this week it was Brody Lee's turn to dish out some punishment by virtue of being about 3 times the size of little Marco. But I love it, and you know that when Marco eventually gets a win over someone much bigger and stronger than him, whenever that happens, well, you know 2 things are going to happen whenever that happens. One, it's going to cause a big pop in the arena. Everyone's going to love it, provided fans are back by this stage. And number 2, everyone's going to get really annoyed on Twitter. Jim Cornette's going to say some mean things, and like 1 or 2 of those mean things is going to just cross the line slightly, and we'll all have to ignore Jim Cornette again. But I was really impressed with Marco's performance this week, so much so that someone I know on Twitter tweeted me saying, sounds like Marco's in your boy stable. Marco is not yet in my boy stable, and for those who don't know what a boy stable is, it's an OSW review concept where you choose a little stable of wrestlers who are your boys but never really met great singles success. So for example, my boy stable consists of Steve Blackman, Bull Buchanan, Lindsay Dorado, of course, and probably the Yeti as well. That's my boy stable. Marco's knocking on the door, but he hasn't quite been invited into the party yet. But with performances like this week, he is getting a little bit closer, and hopefully this 1 point is just reward for getting his face absolutely kicked in by Brody Lee. Next up, number 9 this week, picking up 2 points, it's the man formerly known as Shane Strickland and also formerly known as Killshot in Lucha Underground, if you were a fan of Lucha Underground like I was until that last season when everything went really weird. It's Isaiah Swerve Scott from NXT who got his first win in the interim Cruiserweight Championship tournament, defeating one of my favourites, Phantasma. But it's okay, it's alright, it was still a good match. Just the wrong man won. No, that's just my own bias showing. I know that you have to give everyone a little bit of a win here and there to keep the groups close in this round robin tournament. It was a good match. I don't think Scott's going to win the tournament. I think there's people who are either more viable interim Cruiserweight champions in the tournament or people with more compelling storylines going on, because at the moment Scott's storyline isn't really, there's not much there. And that's a shame, and Scott is a great example of somebody who was an absolute boss on the independent scene before signing with WWE. He was, I believe, was he Evolve champion? I think so. He was certainly doing really well in Evolve. He was healing it up heel style, feuding with the likes of Matt Riddle and stuff. It was all going really well for him. Eventually he beat Matt Riddle for the Evolve Championship, and then he lost it to Fabian Eichner, who was already at that point signed with WWE. So that was the beginning of the sort of decline of Isaiah Swerve Scott, or Shane Strickland as he was known then, just because I really was invested in him when he was on the independent scene, and now he's not really being given much of a storyline. Now that makes part of me wish that he would win this tournament, but I just don't think he's going to. I don't think the chance is going to come up for him yet, but hopefully in the future something is given to him, some sort of feud, some sort of storyline, and from there he can hit those heights again that he did when he was in Evolve. So 2 points to Isaiah Swerve Scott. What's with the name as well? Isaiah Swerve Scott. Swerve's a weird nickname. I feel bad now if he came up with that, but it sounds very NXT, doesn't it? But 2 points for him. A good performance, a good win over Phantasma, and it's worth mentioning as well that Phantasma, those Lucha bandits tried to kidnap him again, but he fought them off, because he's not in charge of them, even though we all thought he was. Who is? Could it be Isaiah Swerve Scott? Oh my god. Number 8 this week is a man who I don't believe, probably not, has never been on Wrestlers of the Week before, not that I can remember anyway. It's Apollo Cruz. Now I know you're thinking, Jack, this was a bad week for Apollo Cruz, you idiot, get off YouTube immediately, and that's a fair point, that is a very fair point on multiple levels. However, not this week. That's because despite being pulled from that men's Money in the Bank ladder match, having already qualified for it, what a weird decision by WWE, Apollo still had a very impressive performance on Raw. And like the likes of Asuka, I think that Apollo Cruz is one of those people who's really stepped up in the lockdown era, taking advantage of those gaps in the roster and managed to put on some pretty good performances. So let's just run through what happened to Apollo on Raw. First of all, 6-man tag match, casually gets a pin over the United States champion. That's pretty big. Andrade there getting pinned by Apollo Cruz. Nice stuff, Apollo. That was incredibly patronizing, I'm very sorry. And then later on, he gave just the slap heard around the world backstage to Andrade. It was absolutely incredible. That led to a match between himself and Andrade later on in the night, so he did double duty, and that's when things started to unravel for Apollo and cost him probably quite a few places on this week's Wrestlers of the Week. He put in a good performance in his match against Andrade. It was for the United States Championship, but he came up short because he injured his leg, and I really do understand the point that he didn't get pinned or submitted by the champion, so it protects him a little bit, but I really am wary about where this is going because he's been pulled from a ladder match that I was really excited to see him in because he's so athletic. Now I'm like, I'm worried about the future of Apollo Cruz. You know what, maybe this is to write him out of storylines for a bit so he can take time off and recover from injuries that we don't know about and then come back stronger than ever and maybe then win the US title. Maybe he's just gonna not take time off, recover in kayfabe and then win the US title then. I don't know. I'm still worried, I can't shake that feeling. Number 7, speaking of not being able to shake feelings about someone, it's Darby Allen, bloody hell. My boy, Darby Allen, oh my god, another good match on Dynamite. He's so consistent, isn't he? You put him in a big showcase match and Darby Allen will deliver, whether it's against someone like Sammy Guevara or whether, like this week, it's against someone like Cody Rhodes. Darby and Cody had a good semi-final TNT Championship Tournament match, which Darby lost in curious fashion. The build-up of the match was good, I enjoyed the action, it was crisp, it was slick, it was well put together, it was a good clash of styles as well, and it built off the history of the pair of them. However, the finish wasn't something that I was a fan of. If you didn't see it, the finish was this. Cody went up top to do Darby's own finisher on him, to steal his finisher, hitting the coffin drop from the top rope. Darby got the knees up, Darby went up to do a coffin drop of his own, hit it, absolutely nailed it, pancaked Cody, and Cody rolled him up for 3. So that was weird. It was a weird ending to the match. In Graded, I did say that I appreciate AEW trying to surprise us with different match finishes now and again, which is a nice contrast to what you often see in WWE. However, on the other hand, I don't know if I agree with it because Cody's just been nailed by Darby's finisher and he's got the strength to go, hey, I've got you. I'm going to the final now. So yeah, I'm not sure really how I feel about that, but the long and short of it is this match was good. I would maybe have liked to have seen Darby win. I know they're building towards Cody and Lance Archer in the final. I know that. And they have been even before this tournament was a thing. But I would have loved it if Darby had won, thereby depriving Cody of a shot at another title. And that just sends Cody a bit towards a bit of a breaking point. I think that would have been really compelling. And also, Lance Archer has to wait and fester for his eventual match with Cody. And then when him and Jake Roberts finally get their hands on Cody, it's going to be a really exciting encounter. Instead, they just sped ahead with the storyline, probably as expected, to be honest. I may be asking a little bit too much there, but I don't buy this whole idea that I saw floating about online that Darby had been buried because he's lost to Cody again. You know, he's taken Cody to a time limit draw, he's lost to him narrowly twice, and he's a far less bigger star than Cody, if that makes any grammatical sense at all. So I do see why they're putting Cody over him, and I do have faith that eventually they will have Darby get a big win over Cody, and when he does, it's probably going to be huge. Number 6 is Moose! 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 Are you ready to party? Moose! I've got neighbours upstairs. Moose is now the new TNA champion. I know what you're thinking, Jack, it's not called that anymore, you sexist pig. It's called the Impact Championship in this day and age. And I say to you, no, it's called the TNA Championship. Moose is lying and hasn't got the real one. Moose has been feuding with these older guys and declaring himself the greatest TNA star in history and stuff. He's confused about which era of the promotion he's in, basically. And on Impact this week, it was the second part of the 2-part pay-per-view they were doing, and Moose won, but not really. So Tessa Blanchard's at home with her Impact Championship, so they can't put that on the line. So instead, here comes Moose with his TNA Championship and wins it, or puts it on the line and wins it, or something, against Michael Elgin. Now I know you're thinking there as well, Jack, Michael Elgin doesn't job to anybody, ever, especially if they're not Japanese. Well, he didn't job to Moose either. He technically lost the match, but there was a little old trick in wrestling promotion that I picked up from WCPW, let me tell you. If you don't want someone to lose a match, or that specific wrestler doesn't want to lose a match, why not just shove a third person in and they can take the fall? And that's what happened here. Moose and Elgin were going to do battle, and then as soon as this guy came out, I was like, he's taking the fall in this match and Moose is going to win. And his name is Supermax. It's Hernandez. So Moose won what was an entertaining main event, to be fair. It was a good triple threat match, even if it was a tad predictable. But the main reason that Moose is getting points here is, one, the match was alright. Two, I'm quite compelled by where his character's going. He's so deluded and so arrogant with it that it kind of works. And another reason I'm excited is because maybe it'll lead to Moose versus Tessa Blanchard, which is just an incredible clash in terms of like a difference in style, a difference in size. So maybe we'll get that as well. I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. That's about as much as you can ask for in this sort of lockdown era. And I think not Impact lockdown, I mean the lockdown. But that's about as much as you can ask for right now, and I think it's a decent storyline. And I thought the match was decent, and I think that Moose deserves some points, alright? One thing I've noticed though about the main event scene is it's full of either heels or baby faces that it's genuinely quite hard to like. So it's a bit like EastEnders. Next up, I don't know where the story's going, but this one's thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, or a wrench if you're American. It's Drake Maverick. So myself and Adam Pacitti disagree on this one, right? I think that Drake Maverick is still not going to win this tournament, but why are they doing this? Why are they building him up so much if they're going to let him go? Maybe they change their mind. Maybe they're not going to release him. Pacitti thinks that he is going to win. And to that, Adam, I say to you, I think he's got to face Kushida next, and he's probably not going to beat Kushida. I will happily eat humble pie if Drake Maverick does beat Kushida, but you're forgetting that Kushida used to be the ace of New Japan's junior heavyweight division. He won the WCPW Pro Wrestling World Cup. He got a personal congratulation from myself, Jack the Jobber, when he did so. So, I don't know if Drake's got much of a shot. This week though, Drake Maverick put on another good show, and he beat Tony Nese to stay alive in the tournament, which was compelling, genuinely compelling stuff. Often tournaments in pro wrestling go one of two ways. They can either be really dry, or they can be full of drama and intrigue and storytelling because of the structure of the tournament itself. And this one is leaning very much towards the latter for me. It was a good match as well, but it wasn't Tony time because Drake Maverick pulled out the win, thereby staying afloat, and then, you know, staring at the Cruiserweight Championship after the match and stuff. Oh God, I'd love it if he won, but I wouldn't at the same time because then Adam would be right and I'd look like a fool. Number 4, whoa, only smoking mirrors, whoa, there goes, it's Cody. Good match against Darby Allen on Dynamite. Yes, I've talked before in this video about how Darby maybe should have won in my opinion, and about how the finish was a little bit weird, but in terms of a match itself, yeah, it was good stuff. Cody was great here as well. Brandy got involved, Cody sidestepped a charge from Darby, Darby rocketed into Brandy Rhodes, and Cody sold it perfectly, because when Brandy gets involved, you always get right. Does anyone else get this from Cody? Yes, he's like one of the biggest baby faces in wrestling right now, but at heart, he's kind of still a heel, isn't he? Like, he sidestepped Darby and allowed him to crash into his wife. He's used Brandy before as a distraction. He's done slightly heelish things. He did so in that match against Dustin Rhodes, but then Cody was kind of the heel in that match overall. I don't know, it's really weird. I just feel like despite being the son of one of the biggest baby faces ever in wrestling history, ever, forever, Cody is a heel at heart. I do feel this. Maybe Randy got in his head too much back in the old legacy. But then again, when he wants to go all babyface and turn it on, Cody's great. Hard to in this match against a smaller babyface in the form of Darby Allen. But at the same time, Cody did well here, and it was a good match, and I haven't really got any issues with it beyond the finish. This all, of course, leads to him taking on Lance Archer in the final, which is going to be very interesting indeed. I have an idea in my head who's going to win, but I'm going to save that for later in this video. How fun, how exciting. Number 3, don't you friggin' forget about Keith, otherwise Tom and Ross will sing at you for... Felt like that went on for about 7 months, didn't it? But don't forget about him. Don't forget about Keith, because he is one of the best parts of NXT right now, and he is still our North American champion. It was another match against Damian Priest. In fact, you know what? Damian should have got an honourable mention, but the problem is that he lost yet again. And I feel like whenever Damian Priest gets close to the title, Keith Lee just proves that he's better than him, or Dijakovic gets in the way, something happens, and Priest just can't catch a break, and that's what happened here again. But Keith, though, Keith was alright. Keith was aight, as people say. What am I doing here? Keith was good in this match, and it was maybe the best match on TV in terms of pure work rate this week, but not in terms of storytelling, which I'll get to in just a sec. But it was good though, good match, good main event on NXT. Keith Lee picks up the win. It didn't feel though like this was a takeover match, did it? Because obviously there was that takeover that got cancelled and they've dispersed those takeover matches around weeks of NXT TV. I believe this was one of them probably, and didn't really feel like that. Of course it's hard to when there's no crowd there, because the crowd is such an integral part of why takeover shows have been so brilliant over the past few years. But at the same time, I do feel like, you know, that the action itself could have been a little bit more over the top. And usually if anyone's going to take it over the top, it is Keith. It was still a very good match though. Probably, as I say, probably the best worked match this week from just sheer wrestling points of view. And I think that Keith deserved the win. And I think it was the right call to keep the belt on him. So just don't forget about him, is the moral of the story. Don't you dare forget about Keith. Keith's such a silly name for a big, intimidating man. Number 2 this week is Lance Archer. Lance Archer is a better name for a big, intimidating dude. Lance Archer. That's a weapon and a weapons specialist in one name combined. Not only that, but Lance Archer is also the man who is now in the final of the TNT Championship tournament against Cody Rhodes. He did so by bloodying and brutalizing Dustin Rhodes on this week's Dynamite. Uncomfortable to watch at times in the best possible way. Archer is great. You know, AEW have got quite a few big guys, not as many as WWE have, but they've got a fair few, and I think Lance Archer might be my favorite of all of them right now. You've also got Wardlow and Brody Lee, but I think Lance Archer is the most complete package of the three. By complete package, I mean in terms of the present right now, because obviously Brody Lee's been great in the past, Wardlow's probably going to be great in the future, but right now, I think it's Lance Archer's time. He demonstrated that in this match with just a classic, big, awful, menacing heel performance, and it was really compelling stuff. Part of that was because of his opponent, of course, but part of that was Archer's years of experience as well. And even though he's only blossomed later on in his career, especially in last year's G1 Climax, that's when he really sort of came into his own. Archer's really carried on that momentum into this year and is demonstrating it here in AEW. Here in AEW, that's right, I'm here in Jacksonville as we speak. But we do have to mention his opponent, and his opponent happens to be number 1 on this week's Wrestlers of the Week, and his name is the natural Dustin Rhodes. I am elated to be giving Dustin Rhodes the Wrestler of the Week award this week because he is so, well, he's a natural. He's so good and he makes it look so easy. Dustin makes it look like you can just get in the ring and wrestle like any of us could, and you just have to feel and think and just react to stuff. Obviously not. It takes years and years of honing your skill and your practice, but because Dustin makes it look so effortless, often it can be overlooked just how good he is. I remember last year after Double or Nothing in Las Vegas when Cody and Dustin had that 5-star match. It was incredible, one of the best matches I've ever seen live. And I made Cody Wrestler of the Week that week, but I wanted it to be Dustin so badly just because I felt like he deserved it as well. This time around, Dustin is getting Wrestlers of the Week despite not being the winner of the match. That's because without Dustin being the opponent here, it wouldn't have been as effective in making Lance Archer look like a dick, basically. Dustin was bleeding all over the place, he was selling, he was firing up and coming back, then getting knocked down again. QT Marshall was coming out threatening to throw the towel in, Dustin was like, no. He was so brave. He was so brave. I talked about how good a babyface Cody is. That's probably helped by the fact that he's Dustin Rhodes' brother. Cody himself also made an appearance, snatching the towel from QT Marshall before he could throw it into the ring, but then looking at Dustin and being like, should I throw it in myself? And Dustin snatched the towel off Cody, and then Archer dragged him in, and Dustin's still holding the towel, and Archer hurls the towel back out at Cody and ends Dustin and progresses to the final. It was simple storytelling, executed really, really well. So for that reason, and for just being a boss all the time, Dustin Rhodes is my Wrestler of the Week, picking up 10 points. Dustin, congratulations to you. So without any further ado, let's take a look at where that leaves us on the league table. Kenny Omega is still very much out in front, but catching up are the chasing pack. Chief among them, Darby Allen, Cody and Keith Lee, who are all tied on 25 points. Very exciting times. As we progress a little bit further down, you'll see that this week the league table hasn't been affected too much until we reach Lance Archer towards the bottom, who with this big result this week has forced his way inside the top 20. Congratulations to you, Lance. Apart from that, there's just so many names here that I want to see back in action again, and it's making me sad that I can't. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. That has been Wrestlers of the Week for this week. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your opinions in the comment section down below. Stay positive out there, and I'll see you very soon.